So this coming week is NeurIPS 2025, and this is the website. This is the agenda. And you notice that this year they have this tab. It says San Diego and Mexico City. So from my understanding, they're doing two versions of the conference, one in San Diego, one in Mexico City. They're doing this because of the visa problems we're having coming to the U.S. now. And, Mexico, of course, they could have held it in Tijuana. That might have been a little bit more integrated, but they are doing the second version of the conference in Mexico City for people who don't want to go into the U.S. And then, so they have the San Diego sessions, which are, I think, a lot of the bulk of the sessions and workshops. And then the Mexico City version, which has its own schedule and workshops. Not as many workshops, but still. And then I believe there's also a virtual component. So if you can't make, you don't want to pay for the whole registration, you can't make the meetings in person, you can catch up online. But anyways, this is I like to go over this because I like to see what people are doing in the field and kind of get a good cast a wide net in terms of the types of topics that are being approached here. They have different panels, they have invited talks, and then, of course, they have their workshops, which are sometimes before the conference. And, I'll go through the list of workshops in a little bit, but let's just go through the agenda. So, of course, they have women in machine learning. They have multimodal data foundations for industry. They have this Expo Talk panel, Beyond Benchmarks, Rethinking Reasoning in Large Language Models. They have some things on synthetic data generation. They have different types of large language model discovery sessions. They have Latinx and AI. They have model merging, which is interesting. It's a tutorial. That is, we don't have any more information about this, but basically, this is model merging, theory, practice, and applications. There's human AI alignment, foundations, methods, practice, and challenges. There's new frontiers in hyperparameter optimization, which is interesting. It's always been an interesting problem because, that's kind of the secret sauce of a lot of models is tuning the hyperparameters and getting them optimized. Then they have planning in the era of language models. They have explain AI models, methods, and opportunities in explainable AI, data-centric AI, and mechanistic interoperability. They have LiDAR processing, more multimodal stuff. This is intro to generative computing and, mobile video diffusion transformers. And let's see. Large language models power intelligent data engineering from workflow to design. Then this who needs attention anyway, elastic state models for real-time streaming tasks. That looks really interesting. That's a demonstration. As you know, there was this paper about 8 or 9 years ago now that said all you need is attention. That's the famous title. And now who needs attention anyway? As we move on, we always find that, I know there's some marketing in terms of like how people sell their own work, but like that's kind of an interesting take on, our progress. This is interesting, causal fairness, an open source Python library for causal fairness analysis. Let's see. Let's go up to this one here on Wednesday. So that was Tuesday, the 2nd of December. Wednesday, there's an invited talk by Rich Sutton, The Oak Architecture, A Vision of Superintelligence from Experience. And the abstract As AI has become a huge industry, to an extent it's lost its way. What is needed to get us back on track to true intelligence? We need agents that learn continually. We need world models and planning. We need knowledge that is high level and learnable. We need meta learn how to generalize. The oak architecture is one answer to all these needs. It is a model-based reinforcement learning architecture with 3 special features. So number 1, all of its components learn continually. Number 2, each learned weight is a dedicated step size parameter that is meta-learned using online cross-validation. And then number 3, abstractions in state and time are continually created in a 5-step progression, feature construction, posing a subtask based on the feature, learning an option to solve the subtask, learning a model of the option, and planning using the options model, the FC stomp progression, which is the this method that they have. The oak architecture is rather meaty, In this talk, we give an outline and point to the many works, prior and contemporaneous, that are contributing to its overall vision of how superintelligence can arise from an agent's experience. So, interesting take on superintelligence from Rich Sutton. This is another talk, Yejin Choi, who is The Art of Artificial Reasoning, and the abstract here. Scaling laws suggest that more is more. Brute force scaling of data and compute lead to stronger AI capabilities. However, despite rapid progress on benchmarks, state-of-the-art models still exhibit jagged intelligence, indicating that current scaling approaches may have limitations in terms of sustainability and robustness. Hold that thought, because we're going to talk about that in a little bit from this interview that Ilya Sutskever did with someone. So I'm going to kind of think about that a little bit. Additionally, while the volume of papers and archive continues to grow rapidly, our scientific understanding of artificial intelligence hasn't kept pace with engineering advances, and the current literature presents seemingly contradictory findings that can be difficult to reconcile. In this talk, I will discuss key insights into the strengths and limitations of large language models, examine when reinforcement learning succeeds or struggles in reasoning tasks, and explore methods for enhancing reasoning capabilities in smaller language models to help them close the gap against their larger counterparts in specific domains. So again, thinking about, this whole focus on scaling where they just make the models bigger and bigger. And, that's not necessarily leading us to something that's a very rich intelligence. It's just kind of a bigger intelligence. And those things don't kind of necessarily, match up. They don't meet the moment, as they say. So that's interesting. People are starting to think about that a little bit more, especially as, you have bigger and bigger models that still have some of the same problems that the smaller models did. So this next talk is Kyung-Hoon Cho, From Benchmarks to Problems, a Perspective on Problem Finding in AI. And the abstract here. During the past 15 years or so, I have worked on a series of seemingly distinct but eventually related problems, including machine learning algorithms, generative modeling with neural networks, machine translation, language modeling, medical imaging, a bit of healthcare, protein modeling, and a bit of drug discovery. I chose to work on some of these problems intentionally. While it was pure serendipity that I worked on some others, it was only in hindsight that these seemingly different problems turned out to be closely related to each other from both technical, social, and personal perspectives. In this talk, I plan to do my own retrospective of my own choices, be them intentional or not, on these problems, and share with you my thoughts on what our own discipline, which is sometimes called computer science, data science, machine learning, or artificial intelligence, is. That's kind of interesting, kind of a retrospective of the whole field and how it's evolved, especially since it moves so fast. It's hard to know kind of where we've been and think about that, because even with our lab, we have that problem where we're just kind of churning away and we're not necessarily putting things into some sort of sense making or order. I try to do that as much as possible, but even then, it's hard to do, and especially in a fast moving field where results get buried pretty quickly under other results and things like that. So those are the invited talks. Then we have some other things down here. We have a bunch of sponsored content. We have Queer and AI. We have language model sessions, deep learning sessions, reinforcement state-space sessions, generation simulation sessions. Let's see if we have the actual talks now. All this is recorded as registration, but that's okay. I just want to go over they have a theory session. They have the creative AI panel, design for intelligence, humans, machines, in nature and emergent co-creation. That looks interesting. Then this is something that I knew we were talking about last week. Morgan brought it up in terms of what people are interested in the tower. And we'll talk about a workshop that they have as well. This is using the virtual cell platform to accelerate machine learning in biology. So there are a lot of groups that are interested in virtual cells for like drug discovery and things like that. And it's very interesting sort of approach to these things. And I don't exactly know what they mean by virtual cell platform, because we've talked about virtual cells in DevoWorm, but and they're very hard to sort of assemble. But this could be anything from biological modeling to actually modeling cells at the very detailed scale. So I don't really know kind of what the state of the art is. Perhaps we can talk about that in another meeting. Okay, so they also have the Indigenous and AI Machine Learning Workshop. They have, this is another invited talk. Are we having the wrong nightmares about AI? And this is Zeynep Tufekci. The abstract is, though seemingly opposite doom and optimism regarding generative AI's spectacular rise, will center on AGI, or even superintelligence as a pivotal moment. But generative AI operates in a distinct manner from human intelligence, and it's not a less intelligent human or on a chip slowly getting smarter anymore than cars or mere horseless carriages. It must be understood in its own terms. And even if Terminator isn't coming to kill us, or superintelligence isn't racing to save us, generative AI does bring a profound challenge, well beyond usual worries such as employment effects. Technology facilitates progress by transforming the difficult into easy, the rare into ubiquitous, the scarce into abundant, the manual into automated, and the artisan into mass-produced. While potentially positive long-term, these inversions are extremely destabilizing into easy, the rare into ubiquitous, the scarce into abundant, the manual into automated, and the artisan into mass-produced. While potentially positive, where are we here? I'm losing track. Okay. While potentially positive long-term, these inversions are extremely destabilizing during the transition, shattering the correlations and assumptions of our social order that relied on superseded difficulties as mechanisms of proof, filtering, sorting, and signaling. For example, while few would dispute the value of the printing press or books, their introduction led to such destructive upheaval that resulting religious wars caused proportionally more deaths than all of the other major wars and pandemics since combined. Historically, new technology's revolutionary impact comes from making what's already possible and desired cheap, easy, fast, and large scale, not from outdated or ill-fitting benchmarks that technologists tend to focus on. As such, artificial good enough intelligence can unleash chaos and destruction long before, if ever, AGI is reached. Existing AI is good enough to blur or pulverize our existing mechanisms of proof or accuracy, veracity, authenticity, sincerity, or even humanity. The tumult from such a transition will require extensive technological, regulatory, and societal effort to counter. But the first step is getting started to having the right nightmares. So that's another invited talk. Looks like there's this Test of Time Award, which is, again, I guess an award that they give at the conference. And this award is the winner, Faster RCNN towards Real-Time Object Detection with Region Proposal Networks. And this is Hao King Ren, Kai-Ming He, Ross Gershik, and Jian Sun. So this is a paper, state-of-the-art detection networks depend on region proposal algorithms to hypothesize object locations. Advances like SPPNet and fast RCNN have reduced the running time of these detection networks, exposing region proposal computation as a bottleneck. In this work, we introduce a region proposal network, or RPN, that shares full-time convolutional features with the detection network, thus enabling nearly cost-free region proposals. An RPM is a fully convolutional network that simultaneously predicts object bounds and objectiveness scores at each position. RPMs are trained end-to-end to generate high-quality region proposals, which are used by fast RCNN for detection. With a simple alternating optimization, RPN and fast RCNN can be trained to share convolutional features. For the very deep VGG16 model, our detection system has a frame rate of 5 frames per second, including all steps on a GPU, while achieving state-of-the-art object detection accuracy on Pascal VOC 2007 and 2012, using 300 proposals per image. And they have their code available on GitHub. So that is the award that they have for that. They have the Creative AI panel. They have some more oral sessions on generation and simulation. They have some position papers, optimization and algorithms sessions. On Friday, then they have the deep learning session, graph session, and theory session. And then a poster session at 4:30 on Friday. And then they have, let's see. They have some other things going on Wednesday evening. And this is a social that I'm going to talk about in a minute. The role of AI in scientific peer review, that's kind of interesting. The Muslims in ML reception, the nonprofits working in openness and trust in AI, the Learning Theory Alliance, and Agent Safety Panel. Okay, then that's the end of the conference, Friday. So Friday is the end of the main conference. They have the closing session, poster session towards the end. So yeah, this is really interesting stuff. Definitely worth, if you can't attend, at least finding a way to think about these topics. Actually, there are 2 more things during the conference. There's a Signosky-Hinton Award, and that is, I don't know who the speaker is here, but the abstract is, the brain processes information through many layers of neurons. The deep architecture is representationally powerful, but it complicates learning by making it hard to identify the responsible neurons when a mistake is made. In machine learning, the backpropagation algorithm assigns blame to a neuron by computing exactly how it contributed to an error. To do this, it multiplies error signals by matrices consisting of all the synaptic weights on the neuron's axons and farther downstream. This operation requires a precisely choreographed transport of synaptic weight information, which is thought to be impossible in the brain. Here we present a surprisingly simple algorithm for deep learning, which assigns blame by multiplying error signals by random synaptic weights. We show that a network can learn to extract useful information from signals sent through these random feedback connections. In essence, the network learns to learn. We demonstrate that this new mechanism performs as quickly and accurately as backpropagation on a variety of problems and describe the principles which underlie its function. Our demonstration provides a plausible basis for how a neuron can be adapted using error signals generated at distal locations in the brain, and thus dispels long-held assumptions about the algorithmic constraints of learning in neural circuits. So an interesting award talk there. And then finally, this last talk by Andrew Sachs, Demystifying Depth, Principles of Learning in Deep Neural Networks. So this is deep neural networks have revolutionized artificial intelligence, yet their inner workings remain poorly understood. This talk presents mathematical analysis of the nonlinear dynamics of learning in several soluble deep network models, offering theoretical insights into the role of depth. These models reveal how learning algorithms, data structure, initialization schemes, and architecture choices interact to produce hidden representations that afford complex generalization behaviors. A recurring theme across these analyses is a neural race, competing pathways within a deep neural network vie to explain the data, with an implicit bias towards shared representations. These shared representations in turn shape the network's capacity for systematic generalization, multitasking, and transfer learning. I will show how such principles manifest across diverse architectures, including feed-forward, recurrent, and linear attention networks. Together, these results provide analytical foundations for understanding how environmental statistics, network architecture, and learning dynamics jointly structure the emergence of neural representations and behavior. So that was that. And then, so now we have the workshops. So the workshops, I'm going to switch to this tab, and I'm going to talk about some of the workshops, maybe some of the things that are interesting, some of the things that are notable, etc. This first one is Foundation Models for the Brain and Body Workshop. So this is talking about foundation models. This talks about foundation models and how foundation models are sort of can be used for this embodiment problem, basically. So our brains and bodies speak a rich and complex biological language of neural and physiological signals, a language that AI models are increasingly capable of deciphering as large-scale data sets become available. Recent advances in brain interfacing and wearable technologies, including EEG, intracortical electrophysiology, EMG, MEG, and ECG, have enabled a broad collection of these signals across real-world contexts and diverse populations. This growing wealth of data is driving a shift towards foundation models, which are large-scale pre-trained AI systems designed for learning from biosignals and generalize across diverse downstream applications for brain-computer interfacing to health monitoring. Realizing this potential, however, requires addressing the unique challenges that come with biosignal time series, which is that they are noisy, heterogeneous, and collected under variable conditions across subjects, devices, and environments. To meet these challenges, this workshop brings together neuroscientists, biomedical engineers, wearable tech researchers, and machine learning experts advancing foundation model approaches. Through interdisciplinary dialogue, we aim to catalyze the next generation of AI models that capture the complexity of brain, body, and behavior at scale. So this is, of course, something that we need if we want to do embodied cognition and kind of get different types of data streams and then integrate them in a way that is informative of what the body is doing as well as what the brain is doing in real time. This is a workshop on AI virtual cells and instruments. So again, as I said, there's this interest in virtual cells, especially in terms of drug discovery and development. So it says as the US FDA phases out animal testing requirements for drug discovery and development, AI tools have become widely adopted to simulate the effects of candidate drugs. we posit that building virtual cells and instruments with AI is poised to transform drug discovery and development by enabling large-scale simulation and interrogation of molecules, cells, and tissues. In our workshop, we will collaboratively define and promote this emerging scientific paradigm of AI to accelerate the drug discovery and development process in this new era. So, yeah, good luck with that. I'm not sure that this is, this is kind of like not necessarily what I was thinking when I was thinking of virtual cells, but this is GenPro CC, first workshop on generative and protective AI for content creation. This is I think about licensing, and I talk about this in my project management class, where you're thinking about licensing content and how generative AI models have kind of reached the typical intellectual property licensing agreements and how we need new open source licenses for generative AI tools. So the abstract here is recent advances in generative AI have empowered machines to create high quality content across diverse modalities, text, image, audio, and video, with impressive fluency and creativity. From GPT-4o and Stable Diffusion to Sora and MM Audio, the explosion of X to X generation, which is just any combination of like text to image or video to audio, is unlocking new frontiers in science, education, entertainment, and art. While Gen AI has shown significant potential in creative applications, these breakthroughs also raise pressing concerns related to safety, copyright, and ethical use. Generative models can be explored to spread misinformation, violate intellectual property rights, or diminish human agency in creative processes. As such, there is an increasing need to balance innovation with protection, ensuring that AI-powered creative tools are used responsibly and ethically. This workshop brings together researchers, creators, and practitioners at the intersection of content generation and IP protection. By uniting the generative AI and creator communities, the GenPro CC workshop aims to explore the latest advances, challenges, and opportunities in the rapidly evolving field. So again, this is one of these things that kind of pops up when you have these new technologies that emerge and things that you need to sort of deal with as you go. This is embodied world models for decision making. This is, thinking about world models and embodiment. And here the abstract reads, world models infer and predict real-world dynamics by modeling the external environment, and they become a cornerstone of embodied artificial intelligence. They have powered recent progress in decision-making and planning for interacting agents. This workshop aims to bring together researchers working at the intersection of generative model, modeling, reinforcement learning, computer vision, and robotics to explore the next generation of embodied world models, or models that enable agents to understand, predict, and interact with the world through learned models. By focusing on embodiment decision-making, this workshop seeks to advance world models beyond passive prediction towards active, goal-driven interaction with the physical and virtual world. By emphasizing embodiment decision-making, we aim to move beyond passive sequence prediction towards goal-directed interaction with the physical and simulated worlds. Okay. And then there's this AI for Matt. I think we talked about that last year, which is accelerated materials design. This is like chemical synthesis, material characterization, and using AI in that process. Okay, some things in combinatorial algorithms, some things on deep learning for code, imageomics, discovering biological knowledge from images using AI. That's kind of interesting. I didn't know they had the term imageomics for it, but that's a new one to me. Op 2025 optimization for machine learning. Let's see. This is lock Large Language Models Workshop, Prevent Unauthorized Knowledge Use from Large Language Models, Deep Dive into Undistillate, Unfine-Tunable, Uncompressible, Uneditable, and Unusable. So this kind of sounds interesting. This is kind of, I guess, a cornucopia of things. Large language models have emerged as a transformative tool across research and industry, revolutionizing how we interact with information. However, their immense capabilities bring critical security challenges. The same features that drive innovation can be exploited for malicious purposes through unauthorized distillation, fine-tuning, compression, or editing. These vulnerabilities pose severe threats, including intellectual property theft, the generation of sophisticated disinformation, the bypass of safety alignments, and the erosion of user trust in AI systems. This workshop aims to bring together researchers and practitioners from academia and industry who are advancing the frontiers of large language model security and protection. We seek to confront the unauthorized use of large language models head-on by exploring novel and robust mechanisms designed to make these models inherently resistant to exploitation while maintaining their beneficial capabilities. The workshop also hosts the 2025 Trust AI Rising Star Award. So this is kind of what they mean by all these things. There's the undistillable large language model, which is preventing unauthorized model replication and intellectual property theft. Unfine-tunable large language models, resisting malicious parameter updates and behavior alterations. Uncompressible large language models, which is maintaining model integrity against unauthorized compression. There's uneditable large language models, safeguarding against knowledge tampering and misinformation injection. And then unusable large language models, ensuring traceability and preventing misuse through watermarking and verification. There's some practice-oriented things there. Algorithmic collective action, which looks kind of interesting, which is looking at collective action in economics and sociology and thinking about how to understand like algorithms that enable collective action, whether good or bad. This is NeurIPS, unifying representations in neural models. When, how, and why do different neural models learn the same representations? And this, of course, connects to neuroscience and how brains do the same thing in terms of representations. This is CauseScience, uncovering causality in science. Okay, so this is causality in science. They're abstract. Many scientific questions inherently possess a causal dimension, from estimating treatment effects in personalized healthcare, understanding biological mechanisms, to evaluating the social and environmental impacts of governmental policies. At the same time, the recent surge in causal learning has unlocked the potential to extract reliable cause and effect relationships with complex high-dimensional data. Despite promising breakthroughs in causal reasoning and discovery, translating those methods into day-to-day scientific practice remains challenging, as it requires transitioning from controlled or simplified demonstrations to robust application-driven research and problems. This workshop is designed to bridge the translational gap by fostering collaboration across the broad spectrum of disciplines, including ecologists, biologists, and social scientists, with a shared interest in both the theoretical and practical aspects of causal inference. And so they have 3 questions that they focus on here. Where does causality manifest across different applied science domains? When can causal learning techniques effectively accelerate scientific discovery? And how can we best integrate causality with domain expertise in real-world scientific data? And so by promoting a bottom-up research paradigm that starts with concrete real-world problems, we aim to do a couple of things. The first is surface unresolved challenges that the theory must address. The second is releasing causal benchmark tests that reflect real scientific constraints. And then third, seed collaborations between domain experts and machine learning researchers that outlive the event. So they want to understand in this workshop the dual roles of causality, both as a tool for reasoning and interpretation, and as a mechanism for planning and experimental design. And so that's kind of where they want to go with that. A lot of speakers here, organizers. So yeah, this is interesting work. Causality is definitely, kind of a necessary component of intelligence and learning, but kind of understanding how you can represent that in a model is a different story altogether. It's very hard to get to. Okay, so let's see. There's this one, Dynamics at the Frontiers of Optimization, Sampling in Games. This one is, again, we'll go to the workshop website. This is dynamical systems have played an important role in the analysis and design of algorithms. Ideas ranging from variational methods, differential and symplectic geometry, numerical analysis, and control theory have paved the way for establishing non-asymptotic convergence guarantees in optimization and sampling as equilibrium computation in games. Yet, the distinct mathematical backbone of these tools often creates barriers to entry for researchers and practitioners in machine learning. This workshop aims to lower that barrier by highlighting the unified role of dynamical systems across these domains. We will convene optimization, sampling, and game theory experts to foster cross-disciplinary dialogue and collaboration. Emphasis will be placed on emerging applications in machine learning, such as diffusion models, distributed and adversarial training, agentic AI, where dynamical systems perspectives are increasingly central. Through a combination of talks, posters, and open discussions, we hope to catalyze new collaborations and broaden the accessibility of these foundational methods. So this is, again, kind of bringing dynamical systems into the mix. Mathematical foundations and operation integration in machine learning. That's MLXOR. The second workshop for Gen AI in health. AI for non-human animal communication, which looks interesting. Let's see what that looks like. The past few years have seen an unprecedented surge in both the availability of bioacoustic data and the sophistication of AI/machine learning models. This convergence presents a unique window of opportunity to revolutionize our understanding of animal communication and biodiversity. However, achieving this requires a conscious effort to integrate the disciplines of AI/machine learning and ethology. This workshop will explore the intersection of artificial intelligence and bioacoustics, aiming to address challenges in processing complex bioacoustic data and interpreting animal signals in order to advance our understanding of non-human animal communication. Join us for a poster session, keynote talks, and a panel discussion as we explore key opportunities to use AI to decipher animal languages and thus deepen our understanding of the natural world. So a nice workshop there. Here's the first workshop on efficient reasoning. This is, of course, reasoning in large language models. Recent progress in large reasoning models, or LRMs, like OpenAI O1 and DeepSeek R1, have been pivotal for tackling complex applications from mathematical and code reasoning to advanced symbolic and agentic planning. Their success often relies on test time scaling, which involves increasing the generation length or depth. However, these approaches incur significant efficiency bottlenecks during training and inference. To overcome these limitations, further advancements are needed in data, algorithms, and systems applicable across various domains, as exemplified by work such as S1, Z1, and Virl. The proposed workshop will bring together researchers and practitioners to rethink efficient reasoning under tight compute, memory, latency, throughput, and cost budgets, with the goal of translating theoretical breakthroughs into practical, deployable solutions. Then there's this workshop, Math AI, the fifth workshop on mathematical reasoning in AI. Of course, this is on mathematical reasoning. And we go to the workshop website. And this is the overview. Mathematical reasoning is a fundamental aspect of human cognition that has been studied by scholars ranging from philosophers to cognitive scientists and neuroscientists. Mathematical reasoning involves analyzing complex information, identifying patterns and relationships, and drawing logical conclusions from evidence. It is central to many applications in science, engineering, finance, and everyday contexts. Recent advancements in large language models have unlocked new opportunities at the intersection of artificial intelligence and mathematical reasoning, ranging from new methods that solve complex problems or prove theorems to new forms of human-machine collaboration in mathematics and beyond. This workshop is centered on the intersection of deep learning and mathematical reasoning, with an emphasis on, but not limited to, large language models. Our guiding theme is, to what extent can machine learning models comprehend mathematics? What applications could arise from the capability? To address this question, we aim to bring together diverse participants from different backgrounds, institutions, and disciplines. And they're going to focus on sort of the following areas: humans versus machines, how we can have a comparative study of human-level mathematical reasoning and current AI techniques. How do they differ, complement one another, or intersect? Measuring mathematical reasoning. How do we design benchmarks that accurately evaluate mathematical reasoning abilities, especially in an era of large language models? New capabilities. How do we move beyond our current techniques? Education. What roles can deep learning models play in mathematics education, especially in contexts with limited educational resources? And then finally, applications. What applications could AI systems enable in the near and long term? Example domains include software verification, sciences, engineering, finance, education, and mathematics itself. So yeah, that's that one. We have practices in video generation and evaluation. What makes a good video? In workshop on multi-turn interactions in large language models. Recent advances in time series foundation models. Machine learning in the physical sciences. This is ML4PS, which happens every year. Regulatable ML towards bridging the gaps between machine learning research and regulations. CogInterp, interpreting cognition in deep learning models. Let's see, new perspectives in graph machine learning. And of course, in graph machine learning, we have all sorts of connections with network theory and complex network theory and graph theory. Let's see, program. This has a number of talks. This has an entire agenda here. So, keynote here, Yusu Wang, learning generalizable algorithm procedures via graph neural networks. This oral presentation beyond sparse benchmarks, evaluating graph neural networks with realistic missing features. Then there's this other oral presentation, Gromov-Wasserstein graph coarsening. Another oral presentation, robust tangent, space estimation via Laplacian eigenvector gradient orthogonalization. This talk by Jure Leskovec, relational foundation models and end-of-task specific graph neural networks. Another oral presentation, causal structural learning in Hawk's processes with complex latent co-founder networks. Another oral presentation on graphs and tables, zero-shot node classification with tabular foundation models. There's this talk by Nina Miolani, topological deep learning. Matthias Niepert, learning approximately equivariant GNNs for simulations of physical systems. Another one here, teaching large language models to reason on graphs with reinforcement learning. And yeah, so those are the talks. And then they have these other areas that they were interested in, which would be, things like symmetry and equivariance and group theoretic graph models, uh, different types of geometric models, graph diffusion models and graph generative models, continuous limited and infinite width analysis of graph machine learning, graphs for science and graph-based simulations, causality and directed acyclic graph learning, self-supervised and semi-supervised graph machine learning, and quantum graph machine learning. So those are kind of hot topics in the area that they also are interested in. So I don't know if VD had something. Graph machine learning is part of what I presented last week. Okay, good. So that's good. Yeah, we do that, of course, in DevoWorm, and it's an area that I think is a nice fit to some of the things we're doing with networks. Did you have any comments or other comments on
No, no, it's just interesting how they have like multiple needs or like different like timing slots, and then they're doing different things. It's interesting to know something like that. Yeah, and whatever is going on.
that? Yeah. Okay, so let's see. Let's go back to the workshops. A lot of workshops. We're getting towards the end, I think. Um, let's see. There's this learning to sense, which is exploring the joint optimization of sensors and machine learning models, pushing beyond traditional paradigms of data acquisition and processing. We aim to rethink the foundations of how machines can sense the world by replacing handcrafted ISPs, leveraging learnable sensor layouts, and adopting task-driven. Okay, okay, and let's see. So they welcome original contributions and position papers on the following topics: sensor optimization for, say, like computer vision, raw to task and raw to label approaches for visual tasks, co-design of neural networks and sensor hardware, low bit energy efficient sensing for embedded or mobile devices, benchmark data sets and metrics for evaluating sensor model pipelines, generalization and robustness of sensor model systems in real world conditions, and then failure case studies and negative results in joint optimization pipelines. Okay, so that's learning to sense. And then there's this what can't transformers do? And so this is the abstract here. With most advances in large foundation models being empirical, our theoretical understanding of what transformers can compute, express, and learn still lags behind. This workshop will convene theorists and empiricists to chart a rigorous agenda for the next generation of LFMs, asking what can and can't transformers do. So this is, again, we talked about moving beyond transformers or post-transformer architectures. So this is actually kind of an interesting uh, thing to think about because we have to know what they can't do in order to think about the post-transformer landscape. They welcome both formal analysis and empirically grounded studies that shed light on theoretical questions, aiming to close the gap between proofs and practice while fostering new interdisciplinary collaborations. And if you go to the workshop website, this is, of course, the sort of the call for papers. So the core themes are theoretical analysis of transformer capabilities, including expressivity, learnability, inference timescaling, and context learning, and the effects of architectural components. There's also empirical studies of transformer behavior that inform theoretical understanding, including architectural or training innovations, mechanistic studies of failures, and comparisons of theorized and observed capabilities. Um, So the accepted papers here, there are a number of different spotlights and posters. There's encoder-only next token prediction. There's on the role of transformer feed-forward layers and nonlinear inline non-inline context learning or in-context learning. Why do transformers fail to forecast time series in context? So there's some work on in-context learning and time series and nonlinearity. Then there are the posters, which again focus on in-context learning. Some things about circuit complexity limits, some things about delayed attention training in terms of how that affects performance. Let's see. In context learning and diffusion language models. In context learning is implicit optimization. In context learning is not gradient descent unless you initialize your transformer right. Out of distribution generalization of in context learning, a low dimensional subspace perspective. Towards the understanding multimodal in context learning, transformers in the dark, navigating unknown search spaces via noisy feedback, and when transformers can or can't generalize compositionally, a data distribution perspective. So those are all kind of thinking about these types of limitations of transformers and the transformer architecture. Okay. Then we have learning from time series for health, which is applying time series data to health contexts and using machine learning to understand that. Data on the brain and mind. Non-Euclidean foundation models and geometric learning, advancing AI beyond Euclidean frameworks. And, this again is thinking about non-Euclidean learning. So non-Euclidean learning is quickly gaining traction in the field. Non-Euclidean spaces such as hyperbolic, spherical, and mixed curvature spaces have been shown to provide more efficient and effective representations for data with intrinsic geometric properties like hierarchy, symmetry, and heterogeneity. Integrating foundation models in non-Euclidean spaces has great potential to enhance their ability to capture and model the underlying structures in relationships and complex real-world data, leading to better performance, generalization, and interpretability. This workshop focuses on the intersection of non-Euclidean representation learning and foundation models, exploring its potential benefits, challenges, and future directions. Okay, then there's evaluating the evolving large language model lifecycle, workshop on mechanistic interpretability, frontiers in probabilistic inference, AI for science, the reach and limits of AI for scientific discovery. This is symmetry and geometry neural representations, which they've done for a number of years. Just kind of working on this area of topological learning and geometric learning. And so, yeah, there are a lot of workshops here. Another workshop on space and vision language and embodied AI. There's a whole workshop on IIT Delhi. So I guess that's just kind of what they're doing. There's the Computational Neuro Society workshop. And yeah, so it's, and then in Mexico City, there are a few other workshops, which we won't talk about right now, but that all looks very interesting. That's a huge brain dump of workshops, I know, but this is again important to understand what the shape of the field is looking like going forward, and kind of thinking about how our work might interface with that. So this is the thing I was talking about. This is going to happen in San Diego. This is the AI for Science panel and happy hour. The only reason I mention this is because it's kind of interesting that there's this sort of social component where people are thinking about using AI in science, whether you're developing foundation models for biology, working on materials discovery, or thinking about how AI can accelerate research. This is a great opportunity to hear from experts pushing the boundaries and to meet others doing the same. So that's something that's happening